Hello everybody, welcome to Celestial Bodies. This is a place to wonder in awe about the movements of the sky above us. And so let's have a look at how the planets are dancing this week. This week, the sun this actually happened last week. Last week the sun moved into the sign of Virgo. And so Virgo is the last sort of month of summer in the Northern Hemisphere. So I love that this card has this like the sun in the card, like a reminder, like it is still summer. And also is represented by the word health here. So I think Virgo month is always a nice time to tune in again to your rituals and your routines and what brings you the most nutrition in a sense. And so there's a bit of kind of sorting the wheat from the chaff with Virgo season. That's the symbol for Virgo. And sort of, looking again, having that kind of back to school feel and clearing things out, freshening it up because when we change into autumn, that change of season is always a time of shift. So it's good if you sort of make yourself more resilient in a way during Virgo season and really take a really clear look at sort of health and how you're nurturing yourself, all your different little rituals. I love that even in this card, the goddess there, the Egyptian goddess, she's in a kind of ritual, she's being cleansed, she's, putting on sort of lipstick. There's a sort of, a re-emphasis in looking at your rituals and your day-to-day routines. So that's the month energy that we're in with the sun in Virgo. And then when we think about our more day-to-day energy, we look at the moon. So we look to where the moon is moving each week. And as well as the sign that it's moving through that gives us a little bit of the flavour of the energy, we really want to take awareness to see if the moon is in its waxing phase, it's its growing phase, or if it's waning. And as we received that full moon last week in Aquarius, we know then that the moon is actually in its waning phase. So the moon this week will be depleting in light as we go through the week. And so naturally during the waning phase, naturally our energy can be a little less lively, a little more moving, not starting something new in a sense, but revising things we've already started, and eventually sometimes as well letting go of some maybe ideas or ways of being. There's a natural letting go before we grow again. So the moon actually started the week in Gemini, but we're into Wednesday now. So now the moon is actually in the sign of Cancer, the crab. And in this little drawing, I popped a little moon on the top of the crab because Cancer, the moon actually rules the sign of Cancer. So it means that the moon is actually really happy there. It's at home there in the sign of Cancer. And so for these next few days, the moon went into Cancer today, you can focus a little more maybe on the home or on the sort of the your nurturing qualities, and just enjoying, even if it's just enjoying a home cooked meal, something warm. There's a coziness to the moon in Cancer. And so the moon will stay there until Friday, when the moon will move into Leo. And obviously Leo is a very different energy because Leo comes after Cancer, and whichever sign comes after, that's going to bring something like almost very different to what came before. So the weekend with the moon in Leo, that's a more fiery energy, a little more lively. It might have you, especially if the weather, I'm in Scotland, it's been raining forever. So if the weather warms up here, I feel like that might be a weekend where everybody wants to be outdoors, and that sense of like a final face in the sun type of a feeling, like expressive dancing, expressing yourself, watching a play, and enjoyment of the sun, all of that could be our weekend energy with the moon in Leo. And so that's our kind of day-to-day energy, that's our monthly energy. And then let's also look at two things that are happening this week that make this quite a sort of pleasant week in astrology. One of those is Mercury moving direct. So Mercury retrograde has been happening for the last few weeks. That can bring about disruption sometimes in travel or communications or anything that you want to be sort of outwardly active with. But the good thing about Mercury retrograde is it can make you go on an inner journey with the mind and somehow receive a new idea or message or a thought process that once now Mercury has gone direct, you might be able to go forward with. So Mercury's gone direct in the sign of Leo, and it will eventually, as it goes direct and starts moving, this probably not this week, but maybe into next week, it will start to actually move into Virgo as well. And Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury, so once Mercury moves into Virgo, we'll have a very happy Mercury as well. So all in all, things for Mercury are sort of changing for the better this week. The other interesting part of this Mercury retrograde that we've just been working with is that Mercury, through its retrograde, has squared the planet Uranus. This is a symbol for Uranus, twice already. And so as it goes direct, it will go through a third square with the planet Uranus. So that's been the kind of flavour of this Mercury retrograde. So the planet Uranus rules sometimes abrupt change or just something left field that you weren't expecting. So maybe during this Mercury retrograde, as you've maybe been reflecting and going through a sort of change of direction in your thought processes, there's been maybe this like out of the blue energy to it all as well. Thoughts that you didn't realise you were like interested in, or like things you didn't realise you were interested in coming to the forefront. And as Mercury goes direct, it will go through another square with Mercury. And so to me, what that also talks about is this kind of like original ideas or mental breakthroughs, but also maybe there's been like overstimulation as well. You know, when these planets talk to each other, they can mean a kind of spectrum of things. And so for everybody it might hit slightly differently. But the good thing is that Mercury's went direct, and so we're happy about that. It will square Uranus again, so there's maybe a final pass of a kind of like original thought or idea coming into your mind. And then the other planet that gets into better sort of shape this week is Venus. So Venus is our planet of love and friendship and harmony and connecting, and also like pleasure, all things beautiful, artistic, sensual, and the bringing together. And so Venus here represented by this sort of wedding ring. Venus will switch signs this week and also go through a few aspects with other planets that are pretty interesting. So one of those aspects is that just before Venus switches signs Venus will move into Libra this week. And so Libra is also a sign that Venus rules. And so that's why I was saying Venus is becoming happier this week, because it's moving into its home. It's like it's coming home from its holidays. It's been on its holidays in Virgo. And in Virgo, Venus is not so loving it, because Virgo's more of the sign of the mind and sort of the mental and the intellectual, and Venus is just so much more sensual and just wants to intuit. So it's coming away from almost like a study. It's a Venus that's been sort of like studious and studying and maybe perhaps getting better at something, and moving into Libra, where it's coming home. It's coming into its hometown, into a place where Venus wants to bring people together. It wants harmony. It wants a sort of cosmic beauty, like the beauty of justice um, and the coming together of ideas and the coming together of people and listening. So with Venus there, the planets that it's going to talk to just before it moves is it's going to come into an opposition with Neptune. Neptune is an outer planet, so its orbit is very long, and it's been in the sign of Pisces since maybe 2011. So Pisces is actually opposite the sign of Virgo. So all of these planets that go through Virgo will eventually come into an opposition with Neptune. Neptune is now at the very end of Pisces, so it's the very 29th degree of Pisces. And so just before Venus moves from Virgo into Libra, and even just after, there will be an orb afterwards, it will be in opposition with Venus, Neptune opposite Venus. And what could that mean? Well, it's very imaginal and very fantastical and very sort of like melted ecstasy. It could be a lovely time for your imagination, like for just sort of a really fertile imagination and dreams. And it could also be a lovely time to kind of tune into that kind of more fantasy world. A world where, you know, things that maybe the more shadow of Neptune opposite Venus is illusion and disillusionment, and even a sort of disappointment in love, because what seemed sort of just perfect when it comes into the earth might not have the same glow when it's in reality, which is what the imagination is like, right? You try to hone it down into a reality, but it's not quite as how you've seen it in your mind, perhaps. I mean, I suppose that is the struggle of any artist, bringing things from source down into physical form. But it's possible, right? It's possible because we see it in works of art, and we see it sometimes in films that have that sort of I'm thinking of the film Amelie, where in the scene where she runs around the town with the man that's blind, describing everything to him, like bringing his kind of like, just for a moment, like bringing his life into so much more vibrancy. So yeah, maybe that's a good film to watch during this transit. There is something like take yourself on an artist date, or allow yourself to go into that kind of more whimsical, more fantastical, more like allowing yourself to see the world through rose tinted glasses, or through that kind of pinky purple haze of Neptunian sort of transit. So Venus gets that during this week, and also moves into its home sign. So to me, it feels very nice. Venus will also, as she moves, she'll actually trine the sign of Uranus. So some of how it all happens may come about unexpectedly, and maybe not the way. So even as I'm describing this, as you feel this energy, it might just be something from something that is not quite that, but it is. Yeah, I don't know how to describe that, but yeah, there's also a trine to Uranus as she moves. And so Venus is having what can be a lovely time, or could be a sort of dissolving of what you thought you loved or thought you could see. And that's the Venus movements this week. And one other thing that I'm going to mention for this week, but I'm actually going to do a separate little video for this one. So I'll put Venus and Neptune together there, with Uranus on the trine, is these two planets. So this is my representation of the planet Jupiter, big, bold, sort of throbbing, clear quartz crystal. And then we have this little timepiece, which is the planet Saturn. These two planets are actually going to enjoy a square relationship, but this square relationship that they're going to enjoy is going to be over the next few months. It's a kind of longer feeling of a transit. And what this could bring up within us is this a less is more feeling. Jupiter, the planet of expansion and growth, squaring Saturn, the planet of restriction. But there's a way in which the squares, when squares happen in the chart, there is a friction that causes things to change with a square. So squares are what makes things manifest in the universe in a sense. And so we are going to be having this square, and I'd like to dive deeper into it, but I think it's giving me the feeling of sort of all of these Jupiterian expansive ideas, and Jupiter's actually in the sign of the Gemini, the dualness, lots of ideas, lots of pollination of ideas, lots of energy. Jupiter will be there for a year, and so it's going to be squaring Saturn for a little while now, and so maybe the square to Saturn is helpful to try and hone some of those ideas, because so many things can actually feel like too much. So I feel like this square might be helpful for us, and I'd like to dive deeper into that in a sort of separate video. But just to recap, we have the Sun in Virgo. Look at your routines, your health, your whatever you can do to bring more nurturance into your life, and to sort of to work out what is right for you and what is not. And then the moon in Cancer, the moon into Leo, a nice weekend for self-expression, and a nice slower couple of days as the moon's in Cancer for like more inward reflection and more kind of coziness. And then the two kind of like big newses of the week for a positive week is Mercury going direct. So anything that you were holding off because you were like, oh, Mercury's retrograde, I better just hold off, it's a great time to go to direct. I actually, this is my first Celestial Bodies weekly astrology review, and I decided just to wait until Mercury went direct, and that's why I'm not doing it till the Wednesday. And so anything you were putting off is like, you can let yourself maybe feel free to go forward in it. And also Venus, the Venus-Neptune connection, I think is strong for love and for going out on like a beautiful sort of date with yourself or with someone you love, but also for receiving kind of these downloads from your imagination, for connecting to source energy, and for just dreaming, in fact, just dreaming. And then this little one, the Jupiter-Saturn, we're going to review that later. I hope you have enjoyed this way of describing the astrology through objects and some of the symbols, so you start to also learn some of the symbols. My aim is to put one of these out a week, and we can enjoy looking at the astrology and bringing it down into objects and making it feel kind of real in our lives. Thank you for listening, and do like and subscribe, and if you're enjoying it, tell people you know, and I'll see you next time.